everybody. Welcome to the MSM Leaders Podcast. I'm here with Pat Lannoye, fellow youth pastor extraordinaire. How you doing, Pat?
I'm okay. Okay. No, I'm doing pretty good. And I'm here with Joe Epley.
Yeah.
Extraordinaire everything.
Sure. Well, Pat, you get the official title of being the first one, the inaugural flagship moment of being in the MSM Podcast studio. This is the first time. It's you, it's me, it's the chicken, it's the logo, it's the lighting, the whole 9 yards. So how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm glad that you found somebody that would say yes.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how to tell you the bottom of the barrel, and then we actually took a few steps down, and I was like, well, maybe this will work out.
We'll do what we can do, and you'll take what you can get.
That's true. So. But in all seriousness, I'm happy you're here. I'm excited for our conversation today. We decided to start this podcast, again, a little bit of the heartbeat, right? We have 3 episodes that we've already recorded that are just audio, and so I encourage people to check that out to hear some vision and all these things. But really, in my opinion, and as we've kind of talked as leaders, the idea is that this would be a resource, right? If you're new to Montana, like we know, you and I both know that Montana is a wonderful place, a wonderful family to be a part of. However, sometimes it can take a long time to kind of become part of that family and to jump in. And so we're really hoping that by getting to know me, getting to know you, and the other co-hosts we're going to have, like, hopefully we can accelerate that process for somebody to jump into our events, to jump into our culture, to jump into our family, if you will. And so, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and I think that's really good because I'm not a native Montanan. I've been out here. Right?
I'm just kidding.
It sure does. I married a native Montanan, and I dragged her off to another state for 14 years. But then we came back here, and I've been in Montana now since 2013. So if you're watching this in the future, it could be longer.
The future.
So I don't know.
Wow.
But it's been a while. But it is. Montana's a unique place. They will love you and embrace you and be there for you. But at the same time, it can feel hard to try to. Because everyone's been here forever and everybody knows each other, to try to break in and feel like, oh, I am a part of this thing. Not that you're not loved and welcomed, but people just assume everybody knows everything.
Right.
Because everyone's been here for 5 generations or whatever.
And they'll introduce themselves that way. Like, that's the fun part. They'll be like, hi, I'm a 7th generation Montanan. And you're like, I wasn't asking, but thank you.
My kids are 6th generation Montanans on my wife's side. They are the 6th generation. He goes back to homesteaders back in there. And that gives me a little bit of cred, but not much because they're like, but you're.
Yeah, where are you from?
You're not even like a half generation at this point.
But all that to say, we are excited because, again, we're starting with this Why series. This podcast is going to turn into so many wonderful things over the years. But for now, we wanted to lead out with this series of, like, why do we, the Montana Student Ministries, do what we do? And so, but also, who are we generally, right? And so, first thing I want us to do, and you've already alluded to it a little bit, but if someone is just moving to the state, they're taking over as a youth pastor, kids pastor, some other next gen role, and they say, man, I'm going to show up to my first event, and I'm not going to know anybody, and that's something I don't want to happen. And so why don't you spend a couple minutes and just tell us, like, your story, right? You mentioned not being born here, but again, where's the journey? Maybe you got saved at a young age. Maybe you got saved yesterday. I don't know. We're going to find out. But tell us, who is Pat Lannoye?
All right, so I'm originally from Wisconsin. And went off to Trinity Bible College out in Ellendale, North Dakota, and that's where I met my wife. And after we graduated, we got married, and we headed out to Wisconsin. And I youth pastored at a little church plant for 14 years. When we first got there, we didn't have a building. In fact, they didn't have a building until after I left. Right after I left, they moved into a building.
Where did you guys meet?
In the armory at Trinity Bible College, which I'm not even sure still exists.
It does. They turned it into a lovely student life center, So.
Yeah, see, there you go. So we met there. I actually went to college right out of high school. My wife waited a year, but that worked out really well because she graduated in 4 and I crammed 4 years into 5. And
classic,
so,
really.
Really. And so we still graduated together. And then once we graduated, we got married right after she finished doing her student teaching because she went for Ed, and then we headed out to that church in Wisconsin, and we were out there for 14 years, bounced around. We were having services at Super 8. We were having services at Burger King. We were having services at a nursing home. We were having services in a garage and kind of a warehouse thing, and then a bowling alley, which was fantastic because you could have wings and beer at the same time.
Oh, my gosh.
It was interesting.
You could have.
We could have had.
You could
the wings,
have had.
yes. The wings, yes. The beer is whatever we cleaned up from the night before and dumped out because we were in the little where they would have like a reception room or
Oh,
whatever.
sure,
So there would be
sure.
wedding receptions there on Saturday night. We'd come in
So
and find
wild.
these cups that are half empty, and our lead pastor's little 2-year-old would run around and just drink whatever he found. And we're like, no, keep an eye on Josh. And so we did that for 14 years in one church. Loved it. It was fantastic. Had no desire to leave. And then God said it was time to leave.
Sure.
And so we left, and that was hard. But we didn't even know where we were going. We put our house up for sale. Didn't know where we were heading. Ended up being in Montana. And I had traveled, as well as being a youth pastor, I had traveled and spoken at camps and retreats, did the whole evangelist thing while I was youth pastoring. And there was a small camp in eastern Montana that I had spoken at for several years, and ended up going on staff there when we moved out to
Good old
eastern Montana.
Bible Camp. Very
Yep.
to the point,
Right? And it was, this is who
This
we
is
are.
a Bible camp, and we are in Eastern Montana.
And so we moved out there, and my wife got a teaching position, and in a little small town out there. And then a week after we moved to eastern Montana, having given up all the stability that we could possibly have, we discovered that my wife was pregnant with our second child, and didn't even know medically that was possible, but God did a miracle for us. And now we have 3 kids, which is amazing. But yeah, so we were out there, and I was on staff at that camp for 3 years, attending church in Sidney, Montana, which is my wife's home church. We were married there. And then after 3 years of being on staff at the camp and attending the church, we actually went on staff at the church. I stopped working at the camp, and we moved into Sidney, which after being in Little Lambert, which is a tiny town in eastern Montana.
Sydney's what we call a thriving metropolis of 5,000 people.
Yeah, and it felt huge after being...
Can you imagine?
Wow, yeah, because we lived in Lambert, which is about 25 miles
Restaurants,
outside.
let me tell you.
There was grocery stores.
Yeah.
2 of them. And so it was amazing. And so we moved into town, and I was on staff at Sidney for 3 years. And then there I was the family life pastor, which encompassed children's ministry, youth ministry, all those kind of things. And then a year and a half in of being on staff, the lead pastor left, and I became the interim lead pastor as well. And so I did that for a year and a half of my time there. And then we headed out to Bozeman, and we were at Summit Church in Bozeman. Been there here in the summer of 2025. It will have been 6 years that we've been there. And there I am. I came on originally as a children's pastor, and then eventually became the children's and youth pastor. I call myself the student ministries pastor because you got to have a title.
Right.
So that's what I do there. Been there for going on 6 years now, and love being in Bozeman and at Summit Church.
Well, that's great. I love that story. And you and I became friends when you were over in eastern Montana, because I was youth pastoring in Baker on the border there.
And you were amazing to have over there as well. That was a lot of fun.
We had a good time because it was so much fun running events with you, and obviously the friendship side, but it's great when you're like, oh, this person gets leadership, but then you're like, oh, I really enjoy their general vibe. My favorite memory of you, one of my favorite memories of all time, is number one, I have a picture of you wearing. It's actually several memories. There's these fairy wings that you were wearing at an all-nighter we had, and we were trying to do. We did. I think we did. I Can Show You the World as a duet.
Yes.
And I remember thinking this will be great because we get these 2 funny people, because I think very highly of myself. And it ended up being that you just crushed it, and I was like, I am dwarfed by the talent and optimism of this man. But my other favorite memory is we were running a winter retreat at Sidney, and they have this youth room upstairs. And the building is, it's a phenomenal facility, but they were kind of at their own pace with upgrades and whatever. And so there was this lighting board in the back, and it was for the stage lights at Sidney, and it was just a little analog board. It had the switches, and you could go like this. And during the middle of the first song, I'm suddenly aware of this killer light show that's happening. They're playing whatever upbeat song, and the lights are just going. And I look back, and here's Pat Lannoye in the back, just dun 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 dun. And it was like your whole body was involved in this light show, and it was incredible. So that was my snapshot. This is my core memory of Pat Lannoye.
I remembered the wings. I forgot about the light show. I do remember that now.
You just were so committed to pulling it off, so committed to being we're going to make this the best we've got. And so, there's no program here. It was just Pat and his blood, sweat, and tears just making this lights happen.
I do remember doing that now.
Man, but for the topic at hand,
Yes.
Today, I was worried about this. I was like, we're going to shoot for 30 minutes. That's a lie. We're still shooting for 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes. But topic at hand, right?
Yes.
The idea of this Why series is really to give kind of episodes on all the things we do. Because, again, as student ministries, I think I did a count, and we have all these events for the Montana Ministry Network, our network of Assemblies of God churches. And on the network calendar, I think I counted like 22 for this year. Okay, wow. And we are doing 16 of them. Wow. It's like the student ministries department, we got a lot going on. We've got programs and we've got events and we've got stuff that people can be a part of. And so before we dive into anything specific, today's episode is mostly about why should we get connected in the first place? And so give me your best 2-sentence shot. I'll give you mine in a second. But we talk about the Assemblies of God as a network, and we'll kind of get into what that means and what it is. But why connect? Why be a part of what we're doing,
Yeah, well, one of the things that really helped me out when I got to Montana, being in eastern Montana, it's different. Western Montana and eastern Montana are two different worlds.
Right. I remember the rage I felt when I would drive to western Montana and there was a town with another AG youth pastor, and it was 25 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. But in eastern Montana, it's an hour minimum, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I mean, it's just it's a much wider place. It's very spread out.
We were, I think, 2 hours apart. Yeah. Am I right on that?
Yeah, we were best friends. That's who I had. There was nobody
you didn't
else.
Have a choice. You were just stuck with what you could get.
I was oh God, I guess.
But I would go to. I mean, having been in Wisconsin, 45 minutes was a long way to go to be with somebody. Sure. But even there, it was we need to be plugged in. We need to be connected. When I got out to eastern Montana. And everybody's on an island.
Yeah.
And if you don't have some kind of relationship, some kind of connection, it gets really hard.
Yeah.
And really lonely. And I can tell you, and this is a story that I've shared a lot, but having a relationship with you got me through some really, really difficult ministry and personal times. Because, as God's working through this ministry stuff in my life, it was also very personal. And if I wouldn't have had a relationship with you, I don't know. I mean, God is God, right?
Yeah, He'll do it. I mean, we're not going to, don't pump me up too much. I'm yeah, please tell me how integral I was.
Right? But that God used that relationship to help get me through some really, really difficult stuff. And if I hadn't connected at sectional level, and we combined our sections for things like winter retreat or all-nighters, which you mentioned that one. It was the day before I had told the board that I was never doing all-nighter again, and you called me, and I'm like, oh, well, we're going.
Yeah, the last time I said the phrase, I'll never do an all-nighter again, another kids pastor to my youth pastor to my right, Hanson, our friend, looked at me and just said, didn't you just agree to come to mine? I said, okay, but after that, no more, until you ask me next year.
But if I wouldn't have had that relationship, it would have been really hard to keep going on a personal level, and then from there, how do I do ministry? If I'm broken personally, how do I do ministry? And so it was being involved at sectional levels, or even just going over to the next church over, which happened to be 2 hours away when you're in eastern Montana. But going to those things, going to youth conference, going to camps. Once I started going to the district
the one on
wide
the west
camps,
side, it's way far away. Obviously,
that was a 12-hour drive in a church bus to go to, but those things allowed me to build those relationships that on a personal level, forget the ministry with the students and everything they're doing. Right. On a personal level, I needed that, or I don't think I could have gotten through those times I went through. God used those relationships to get me through. So the importance of connecting at any district thing, I mean, I go to Network Council, I go to Connection Conference, I go to everything that I can.
Right.
Not just for the ministry, but to
we can't maybe do everything, but
Right, but I mean, there are things that I don't go to because I can't.
Right.
But I go to everything that I can, not just so that my students can be involved in ministry, but so that I can make these kind of relationships that I can pick up a phone and I can call you, even though we live 2 hours apart still. That seems to be the magic number for us. Or I can call up my friend Josh down in Ennis, or I can call, there's any number of people that I can give a call to because I know them from being at these events. And we talked about how hard it is to connect in and feel like you're connected to the Montana network just because you do have kind of that outsider sense. And again, this is nothing against the people of Montana. It's just when you know everybody, you get like that,
it's
right?
It's just easier. Yeah, it's easier to be a closed system.
Yeah. but going to those events allowed me to get into that system.
Yeah.
And connect with everybody. And yeah, so I mean, it's vital.
Yeah. I would say for me, and it's kind of accelerated because, again, I was in Eastern Montana, same thing. And before you got there had been several ministry transitions in towns close to us, Sydney being one of them. And several of my friends who were like youth pastors, full-time positions, left. And I did a tally one time, and I was like, man, there are 14 communities that have an Assembly of God church in them east of Billings, Montana. So we're talking the whole third of the state. And not one of them at that time for a year or two really had a full-time youth pastor, even really a volunteer person. And so I'm, as a young youth pastor, kind of again on this island, I was like, well, I guess I got to go figure this out. So I would go sit down in bowling alleys and small towns and cafes and say, hey, I want to just be friends. And so one of the things that I learned is that ministry is just easier with friends. And even in this role as the youth director is saying, hey, I now get to oversee the state. One of my favorite pieces is I have never gone to a church and not learned something. I've never sat down to coffee with a leader and not learned how to be a better follower of Jesus, better leader, better friend, whatever it is. And so for me, when I say, hey, why connect at all? It's because I need you, you need me, we need each other, in my opinion. And that, I think it crosses more lines than we think, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, I'm in a small church and I don't really feel understood by other people for what I'm going through. Or you'll be like, man, I'm in a really big church and I have staff around me and I have people, and I don't really, do I need more people to connect with? And it's like, hey, at the end of the day, everybody, in my opinion, could benefit from kind of connecting. And so let's do this. Let's talk about, because again, we don't want to jump the gun.
Right.
What are we connecting to? Okay, because there's a lot of things asking for connection: cults, pyramid schemes, whatever else. Some of my favorites. Still waiting to give a guy a call back. I'm just kidding. But
I gave him my bank routing number, but
what are we connecting to? And so why don't we do this? Why don't you highlight some of the like the events for students? We're talking kids and youth again, and just walk us through what a year looks like. What are some of the opportunities we have to connect with people, and what are we connecting to? Let's set the landscape.
Sure, yeah, and I do children and I do teens, so figure out what works best for you. But this is my world, right? So we have winter retreat, obviously in the winter. That's the first big section district kind of well, actually, even back it up, personal level, we have Connection Conference as pastors, so we have that, but we're talking about student ministries. So Connection Conference in January, fantastic, go, highly recommend.
And I'll hit on some of those adult ones too.
So but then you get to student ministries, you have winter retreat. And winter retreat's a lot of fun. We have a really good winter retreat
and there's,
going on.
I think 6 of them across the state that are kind of different youth groups partnering together.
Yeah, and we partner. We've combined a couple of sections. We have the Billings area churches and the Bozeman area churches, which I shouldn't say Bozeman because it goes huge. It goes this huge area, but I love it. I've been able to get good relationship with some of the other youth pastors, ones that I wouldn't necessarily rub shoulders with all the time. And then my students get to connect in with each other, and I've seen those relationships grow between my students. But I'm just going to do this really fast because I don't want to get into details on all these. But
we're hitting the overview,
So you have winter retreat going on. You have Fine Arts Festival, which recently has been up in Great Falls. And that connects you district-wide, network-wide with people. And so that's a good opportunity and connect with some students there. There's Kids Conference, which I've only been to one of those so far. But yeah, now they've got 2 of them.
There's one on the west side, one on the east side. And again, it's a rare opportunity for kids.
So
gosh. All right, well, you'll notice that we are post-break. We are still working on technical issues, that whole first episode thing.
We are a professional organization.
We are professional. So we talked about KidsCon, right? Just a fun chance for kids to connect. What happens next?
Okay, so some years there's PK retreat
we'll talk about some of that stuff. We'll talk about some of that stuff. But
all those guys. But for the students,
I think is it camp?
Camp.
Yeah, camp.
It's got to be camp on next. So we've got Ranger Mountain Adventure Camp.
That's a fun
whatever it's called
tent
now.
Camping. There's kids for that one. It's a really cool camp, but it's definitely kind of a high buy-in because you're tent camping.
You are actually camping.
Yeah.
Which if you like camping,
turns out,
it's awesome. Yeah, I know. How often we say camp, and you're like, oh, I'm in a hotel.
Yeah.
But this is like legitimate camping for a couple of nights, and that's a great time. That's a great experience. Man, you just bond with people when you're getting snowed on in June.
Can't shower and you're tense and everything's muddy.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
and it's a good weekend. So there's that, and then we have our regular camps, which we have now. We've added a camp, so we have senior high.
Yeah.
You've got your combo camp. You've got
so
middle school
7th
camp,
through 12th grade, middle
kids
school,
camp west, kids camp east.
Yeah.
And so you have those camps, and there's nothing like camp for building relationships.
Yeah, and honestly, and I know this is different in other places, but like in Montana, camp is king in a sense. Like, I think part of it has to do that like no other time of year is travel stable. Like you can't anticipate not having snow in April or September.
Right.
Like, but camp is like middle of the summer. This is summer camp. It's a whole week. It's just like hanging out. So yeah, camp's phenomenal.
Camp is fantastic. And then you get into the fall time, and you've got youth conference, which goes on in October, and that's a great weekend.
Kind of
as
a
well.
weekend, for sure.
Yeah, and so that's a good time, and and I think those are most of. Let me know if I'm forgetting.
Well, I mean, Jesus' birthday is important, so
well,
we let him have that one.
We don't do anything there.
We're like, but so that's a great overview. There's definitely some other programs that pop in and out. There's something called Junior Bible Quiz for Kids that still exists. It's doing stuff.
It still exists.
Well, I say it still exists because for the churches that use it, it's a phenomenal resource.
Yep.
It's just that currently right now there's like a couple churches in the network rolling with it, and so that's really fun. But I would say on the adult side of things, because again, it's not just for our students that we're connected to. When we say network, we've also got a lot of opportunities as leaders to connect, right? We have something called Connection Conference. I'll give you 3 hints on what the point of that is.
Right.
But it happens in January, and it's meant to be a refresh. It's meant to be more socially driven, more connection driven. We try and plan something as youth and kids leaders to get together. And then as we roll through, some years we're going to be doing leader trainings.
Yep.
Some years we'll be kind of doing these events for your whole lay leader team, so kind of you and your volunteers. Other years, we do what's called Next Gen Leaders Breakaway, and that's kind of the primary staff and their spouse, if applicable, to kind of come in and just say, hey, these are those of us who are doing the job in a sense, whether it's paid or unpaid, because obviously we know how that goes. But but you are doing the job. Let's take a weekend. Let's get refreshed. We'll have, like I mentioned, different trainings. There's stuff like book clubs we're doing right now. They're a lot of fun. This podcast is a great way to connect. We have Network Council, which is kind of the business meeting and kind of this formal conference.
And the thing about Network Council is, so I've been doing this a long time. I'm so old. But it used to be, back in the days when it was district council, before Network Council, it was all about business. I don't know what it was in Montana because I was in Wisconsin when I started this.
But it probably felt super formal.
Yes, and it was all business, and you'd argue and debate all these, and a lot of people would enjoy going to that for various reasons. But that's been changed too.
Yeah.
Where it's no longer just about business. Well, we have to get some business done.
Sure.
That's a couple of hours. But the rest of the time, we have these sessions. You have your get-together times with people. And so that's a great experience, too. It's not just a big annual business meeting. And I think people need to understand that there's far more to it. And this is an opportunity that, I love coming to these things because I do get to see my friends and my other...
We just had, right before recording this podcast, we had Josh Barnhart come in, and there's 3 youth, kids pastor, DYD, whatever, but there's 3 of us from the Next Gen world saying, hey, let's just sit down and shoot the breeze for 30 minutes. And that's a huge win, And so you get stuff like Network Council. As we roll through the years, I mean, I could list all the opportunities, but again, it's just keeping an eye out to say, hey, we want to make moments where you're connecting not just with your students, but with leaders. Yeah. And so again, the idea of what the Assemblies of God was meant to be, because people ask me sometimes, they're like, why are you Assemblies of God? Why does this particular tribe in the body of Christ matter to you? And obviously, I'll just say, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. No,
they pay me.
No, there's a ton of good reasons, right? For me, the how I've seen the family of God, the whole body of Christ metaphor. For me, I don't have deep roots in Christianity. I grew up not necessarily in the church, got saved later, and so I become part of this network of churches. There's 85 or something like that in Montana as of time of recording, but you do do get a chance to connect with other parts of the body of Christ. And again, it makes me feel on a daily basis like I'm not on an island, like I've got people I can turn to, and like that ministry is frankly just like fun because I can connect with people around me who are like-minded, who are helping me do life in ministry, you know?
And I love the partnering in ministry. One thing that's sometimes really good, especially if you're not involved in the leadership of, like, say, a winter retreat or youth conference or whatever, is it's almost plug and play. Like, I know if I bring my students to this thing, they're going to get ministered to in a way that I can't do in my church. I can't bring in these amazing speakers or this amazing band or 5,000 students. Not that's 5,000. We're in Montana.
Right.
But 500 students together. I can't necessarily do that where I'm at. But when we come to these events and you get together, all I got to do is show up.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I know there's logistics and how do we get there, and we got to figure out if there's a hotel or whatever. But honestly, I can bring my students to a high quality event where they're going to be able to connect with God, connect with each other as a group, and connect with the wider body of Christ in a way that I can't provide for them in my own church setting, whether it was when I was out in Lambert and Sidney, Montana, small town eastern Montana, or even in Bozeman, which by Montana standards, there's a lot.
It's one of our larger towns.
Right.
So for sure.
Yeah, by Montana standards, like, oh, there's a lot here, but I still can't provide for them in a way that we can do if we're doing, say, a winter retreat with 8 other churches or youth conference or camp or any of these events. And so the partnering is really nice. And sometimes all I got to do is show up.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to do more than that, which I highly recommend to people, get involved.
Yeah.
And Joe's really good about pulling people in and having...
I like to call it my own personal pyramid scheme. I'm like, please, if you recruit 3 of your friends and they recruit 3 of their friends, we can do this,
Right?
Nobody's getting paid.
Nobody, no. I got a $5 Starbucks card.
Yeah, and you know what? Hey, it's $10. Show some respect. All right?
No,
Show
it was
some respect.
$5. So I had to chip in the final 50 cents on my mocha.
Gosh.
And I know those in Circle can't get to a Starbucks. I understand that. But for those of us in Bozeman.
Right.
So
the thriving metropolis.
The thriving metropolis where we have 37 different coffee shops in a 3-block radius. But you can get involved in that stuff and you can be on the inside of how this all gets put together and then be a part of that, which is an amazing thing too. But you have these events that can partner with your local church that can provide something that you cannot provide on your own and in a way that you can't do it. Not to say that you're not good enough.
Yeah, again,
I was an Eastern Montana guy for 6 years.
Conferences, and honestly, like the larger the churches, the more likely they are to be able to provide what we would call like a conference or camp like atmosphere. Yeah. And yet you're still missing kind of the interchange of like when people get outside of their normal, like when they leave their space. I think the language I use to talk about this value is like we talk about mountaintops and valleys and how both of them matter to like the development of a person. And when we talk about these events, what we're really saying is, hey, why don't you get kids out of their normal setting, get students out of their normal setting, come to something different that is so Jesus focused that even if you can do something similar, kids are still in their hometown, their school, their spot. Whereas if you say, hey, come travel to this, come go to this, come be a part of this with other students, there's just, again, it's a real it's like a win-win, because I remember as a youth pastor, you come home from an event like that and you kind of have a new energy, a new life that launches kids through the school year that no matter how hard I try, I'm just not going to replicate it the same way. And on the flip side, we need the local church because the valleys matter. And like going through that school year, when they come to these events, then it helps bring so much to the table there where we can now provide a great moment. We can see and kind of celebrate the growth that the local church has been having in the individuals and their lives. And so, again, in a perfect world, these two things, the local church, these events, they work well together,
Yeah. And I mean, I look at it from my own life. I didn't grow up with a real big church experience. But I had a local church that reached out to
Go. Okay, so again,
welcome to the first podcast.
Welcome to the first podcast. It's just funny. Again, you mentioned this. We live so far away. It's like, well, we're going to knock it out one way or another. So here's our best attempt at a continuous streaming podcast. You can never anticipate camera
Just zoom in, zoom out. No one will know.
The main point we were just making is that, like, this connection aspect, the reason to be together, connect, is part of it is that it like supplements the life of the local church. So here's how we're going to end this podcast, mostly out of immense fear that the camera will overheat. But I would love to hear one story from your ministry experience about, and we've kind of, I would say for you, we've already heard kind of the leader connection side of it, but talk about just one highlight of what an event like something that is offered in the state has meant to a student in your ministry.
So I'm going to do this from a recent one. And you know this story already, but you at home probably don't. So
names redacted, obviously.
Right, obviously. There we go. So I had two students. I'm going to call them George and George.
George and George. And they had a third friend. What's his name?
George. So I had two students. And obviously, as a youth pastor, I want to encourage my students to be reaching out to their friends, sharing Jesus with their friends. And these two students had a friend that they wanted to share Jesus with. And so they did what they could, combined, were from two different communities, actually three different communities, because the one student is from in Bozeman, another one was from way out in Three Forks, which is about a half hour away, which we draw from, and another one was from Manhattan, which is halfway between Three Forks, right?
Zone, yep.
So, but they wanted to reach out to this kid, and they kept trying to connect with him, whatever, and they finally said, you know what, we need to get this kid to camp, because we can't get him to come to youth group, we can't get him to, but if we could get him to come to camp. And so they approached me, and they said, we want to get this guy to come to camp. I said, I would love for him to come to camp. No idea who he is. And then they came to me later, and they said, could we scholarship him because he can't afford to go? I said, absolutely. We will scholarship this kid. And so we took him to camp. And the drive up, he ended up hearing about Jesus for 5-6 hours because we live in a big state. And this kid came from a different religious background. And the people driving his vehicle had just come back from a mission trip, two people from that religious background. And so then they had this whole conversation. We get up to camp. He gets exposed to this camp service, which is nothing than like anything he's ever experienced in his life. And this camp speaker in the middle of the message turns, looks at him, and points at him for something, just random. There are 600 students in this chapel service. And he points directly at my student as he makes a point, and had exactly to deal with what this student was going through in his life. The response time was given, and this kid just sat there.
Yeah.
And my students sitting on either side of him just put their arms around him and began to pray for him. He finally gets up and leaves, and they're like, oh, man, did we take him off? What are we doing?
Go? Sure.
He just went and sat out on the campgrounds, and another student from another church, no idea who this kid is, comes walking by carrying 2 sodas, stops, backs up, and goes, you look like you need somebody to talk to. Sits down next to him. He goes, I bought both of these, one for me for now and one for me for later, but you need one of these. Hands him the drink, and they sit there and they talk, and the student that had come up with us begins to pour out his heart, and he goes, I can't answer all of your questions right now, but there are some great youth leaders here who would love to connect with you and help you. And that kid went to bed that night at midnight at camp going, what is going on? Who is this God that is
getting my
all
attention,
this stuff,
really,
right? And so then the next morning, there was an amazing morning service that spoke directly to what he was dealing with. We had a youth group time. So then it was a local youth ministry time where we talked about some of this stuff, dealing directly with it. And then just going off to rec time in the afternoon, I pulled him aside. I said, I bet you got a lot of questions. I would love to be able to just answer any questions that you might have if you want to just hang out. Because actually, yeah, I would. And we talked, I think it was about an hour.
Sure.
And by the end of that conversation, he had given his life to Jesus, which was a huge decision for him because, again, comes from a different religious background.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if my parents are going to boot me out of the house when I come because that's a real possibility, all of this. But then he shared with his friends that had brought him. He shared with the adult leader that helped drive him up about what Jesus had done. And that night at service, we were singing Goodbye Yesterday. He's like, the cross before me, all the, and he is, after the night before, going, what have I walked into?
Yeah.
He's up front, arms raised, shouting it out with all he is. He responded to every altar call. Every single one, including the one for being called into ministry. And I pulled him aside after that night that we had later on in the week. I said, now this is what this is about. He goes, yeah, I didn't really know what it meant or what it was for, but they said, if you feel like you need to be sharing Jesus with people, he goes, I need to share Jesus with everybody.
Yeah.
And so he went forward. And I can tell you, that was last summer. We are now at the end of April, beginning of May, whatever this is. And we just had 2 people baptized in our church yesterday, Sunday morning. that were people that he led to Jesus
Wow.
after getting back from camp. And our church is reaping the benefits
Yeah.
of what happened at the camp with this kid who had just graduated from high school, went to high school camp, and came back again. So we see my two students from the youth ministry where they've been poured into, then having the opportunity at the district level to put this into practice, share Jesus with their friend who gets saved up there, filled with the Holy Spirit, all of this stuff, comes back home, leads people to Jesus there, and plugs them into our church where they're getting baptized, and they are ministering in ways at our church right now, including the one lady that came to know Jesus through him. She made these homemade candles and stuff, and used those to reach a new person who went, wow, I've never seen these great candles, and that brought her into the church.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing the partnership of district level, network level events, local church, and we're seeing youth, we're seeing the church as a whole, all of this coming together, and that's the way the body of Christ is supposed to be.
Yeah, man, and what a powerful testimony. For me, I'm going to actually choose a personal story. I got saved in middle school. The church was able to grab my attention, but there was this kind of limitation where I was running up against, maybe a common addiction struggle that young men face, and I'm in middle school, and I got into early high school, and then I finally got to go to church camp. And I remember walking into that camp after a year of serving Jesus, having attended church faithfully, having tried to read my Bible, but just struggling. Almost as if I needed this extra kickstart, this extra something in my life. And I remember walking to that camp, and I threatened God, not a good call, but I was a freshman, very physically imposing, so obviously.
Still are.
Still
I mean,
are.
really.
But anyways, I walked into that camp, and I said, God, if you can't set me free here of all places, why am I even following you? And it was that environment. It was the event environment. It was where God was able to cut through the noise in a way that I don't think he was able to when I was just at home, living my normal life, going home every night. But like you sit somewhere for a weekend, a week, and you suddenly go, man, there's a part of God that I don't think I could have seen outside of this setting. Yeah. And it changed the course of my life. I mean, set me free from an addiction to pornography. I was called into youth ministry at that camp. I mean, it was so pivotal. And again, it wasn't that the local church failed me. No. It's just that we got to see the body of Christ work together to say, hey, here was a local church doing its best to disciple me, and yet I needed this kickstart, this moment of clarity, this mountaintop to help propel me into the next thing in my life. And you still look back at that moment and you're like, man, everything in between the camps and the conferences and the events has been pivotal, but the camps themselves, the conferences, the events, they've been pivotal as well. And each of them has this story of how God has used those events to kind of grab my attention in a new way.
And I'm a similar personal story where I came to know Jesus at a camp. Yeah. But it was a local church that scholarshiped me to send me to a camp. Yeah. So I came to know Jesus at that camp. Later on, I was called into ministry at that camp. I was exposed to the baptism of the Holy Spirit at a local event, but it was at camp where it drove it home. I went, okay, I'm going to receive this thing. It was at a youth conference where my local church brought me to the youth conference. They were discipling me, pouring into me at that local level. Then they took me to the youth conference, and that was where God went from just being my savior to being someone that I surrendered my whole life to, and ended up going home, breaking up with a girlfriend, all this kind of stuff because of it.
Really classic energy.
Yeah, really good stuff. But that was at that youth conference that kind of thing happened. And as a student, we were challenged, reach out to your friends, share Jesus with your friends, and the friend that I picked was an avowed atheist, and the other kids in my youth group were like, you're never going to be able to share Jesus with him.
Yeah, like, good luck.
Yeah, but I invited him to come to youth conference with me. Yeah. And he ended up saying yes, gave his heart to Jesus at that youth conference. So I was challenged at the local level, and it was the district level event that allowed me to actually fulfill that and see the student. And then he came back home and became one of the leaders in our youth group. Man. And so on a personal level, same thing. It was this mix of local and district level things that neither one can do on their own. Right. But combined, they're like the Wonder Twins, man.
Yeah. Just like us. Wonder Twins.
Yeah, right.
You can see the similarities. Well, hey, this has been a delightful conversation. Pastor Pat, best friend Pat, this guy. And I just want to say, thank you for taking the time, first of all. I think this has been a great, dive in. Over the next, several episodes, we'll be talking about different events, things that you've heard mentioned by name. We'll dive into each one individually and walk through what each of the events and what each of these programs means. But for now, I think we can call this one something.
It is definitely something.
We're going to call it finished.
Yeah, and if you stuck around to the very end, Joe's going to send you a special gift card. So just mention that right now. There'll be nothing on the gift card.
I have the power to edit the end of this. Yeah, you get an empty Starbucks gift card so that you can charge it up and get double points.
A 37-cent Outback Steakhouse card.
Listen, we are glad to be friends with you. We're glad to grow, and most importantly, grow together.
Yes.
And so we'll see you next time on the MSM Leaders Podcast.